Yeah.
Hey guys!
Turn the charm on now because it's recording.
Welcome back to Roasting Hayley.
Every single day, my existence is being roasted.
Are you gonna press record or not? Hey guys, welcome back to Hayley Learns How to Use a Computer.
Okay, so after this episode, this podcast is strictly going to be me. You won't be seeing him anymore. So everyone say your goodbyes.
Yeah, the stress is really getting to you, huh?
All right, guys. Welcome back to Lawless, episode 2. Finally got the camera working.
That's
so
dos for our Spanish viewers at home. Following along.
Christian will be translating it, so if you guys are watching this on YouTube, all of these subtitles in Spanish will be courtesy of him. I'm totally kidding.
I was gonna say.
But anyway, Lawless episode 2. Hayley, this is Christian, and we're gonna talk about some fun stuff today. I'm excited.
I wanted to introduce myself. Whatever. No, yeah, I think we've got some interesting topics to talk about.
We just first got to get the hand thing down because Christian and banging on the table right now. I don't.
Yeah, so apparently if I'm very handsy when I talk. That didn't sound right.
We're gonna try that again.
Yeah, I use my hands to express myself when I talk, and Hayley doesn't like it because every time I put my hands down, the mic gets super loud. So
yeah, because
we'll
it's
try
like.
to avoid that.
All right, barbarian over here.
We'll try to avoid that for our little diva over here.
Oh, good heavens! All right, so what topic do you want to start with, man?
I think we can start with one of the ones I talked about.
Okay.
So one of the things that I got asked a lot after I got accepted to law school when I started going to law school was what you should do to prepare for law school while you're an undergrad. And so I kind of wanted to start by asking you, what did you do to prepare for law school, like during undergrad, or you kind of decided a little later you wanted to go to law school.
Yeah, I was going to say, you and I probably have entirely different stories when it comes to this.
Then you start.
So, yeah, this will be a good contrast. So I actually started my undergrad degree in biology, and that's what I ended up getting my bachelor's in, was in biology. And when I started, I had planned on going to med school. So in high school, I was involved with things that had to do with like political science and the law and things like that. But then when it came time for school, I was all, I'm going to be a doctor. And yeah, no. By the end of those 3 years, I was burnt out on biology, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm over it. I hated it by the end of it. And not even because I hated biology, just because I hated chemistry so much. I just thought to myself, if I have to spend the rest of my career doing this much chemistry or go through the next 4 years of my life doing this much chemistry, I can't do it. And so...
Doesn't it take super long to become a doctor, too? Isn't it, like...
Oh, my gosh.
Another, 6 or 7 years after your bachelor's?
After your bachelor's, at least another... Probably, 8 years. Depending on how long your residency is. Depending on which field you want to go into. And the more complicated the field, the longer it takes. And so I was all... I can't do that. So I'm over it. I'm burnt out. And so... I actually took a year off in between my bachelor's and law school, and in that year, I was just working a ton and kind of brainstorming about what I wanted to do, and one of my friends who knows me really well was like, Hayley, you should consider law school, and I said, you know what? Sold. Sure. Why not? Yeah, exactly. And so I liked that idea, and I looked into it and thought, there's so many more options you could explore with a law degree. And, so I guess as far as preparing during my bachelor's, I did not at all.
When did you start studying for the LSAT?
I didn't really. And that's bad. I would not recommend that to anyone. Study for the LSAT.
Yeah, definitely study for the LSAT.
Yeah, but by the time I decided that I wanted to go to law school, it was so late into the application process anyway that... I was like, oh crap, I gotta take the LSAT. Yeah, and so I took maybe 2 or 3 practice tests, and then I was all right, here we go. It's sounds good. I'm ready to do this. Fortunately, I did well, and I'm pretty sure that's the only reason that I got into law school, because I won't say that my undergrad grades were stellar or anything.
Yeah, let's be honest, there was nothing else there, so. Just kidding.
And everyone wonders. Actually, honestly, that makes me think the fact that Christian roasts me all the time is a topic that we will have to talk about sometime, because I'm pretty sure that everyone in law school thinks that we hate each other.
Yeah.
Or that we're like like siblings or something because we're like butting heads all the time and everyone's all, oh, I heard arguing. Yeah, it must be Hayley and Christian.
Like literally, I think it was like our second or third day in our criminal law class this semester. This girl that we had a couple other classes with, she sat down and we were like arguing about something. We argue about stupid stuff like 24/7.
It's mainly because like I will say something funny just to make Christian laugh and he's all, you're so stupid. And then I'm all, okay, hold on.
But anyway, so this girl heard arguing and she like, before she turned around, she's like, is that Hayley and Christian? And she just turns around, she's like, oh, it is. And we were like, oh, that's a reputation.
Yeah. But it's fun. I mean,
it's great.
Yeah,
it's
why not?
Fun.
Yeah. I mean, we're still hanging out making this podcast, so I guess it hasn't been too bad yet.
Yeah, we're 2 episodes in.
I heard that podcasts fail after the 7th episode, so when we make it to episode 8, we will have really made it.
Shoot, that's it then, huh?
I only
got to stick through 7 more weeks. Nice.
But now we need to hear your story.
Yeah, so mine is completely different. Like, I've known I wanted to be a lawyer since, like, 7th grade.
Whoa.
And so every single thing I did, like, I was involved in debate in high school. I did Model United Nations, which is, like, where you pretend to be the United Nations. I would have done my mock trial, but my high school didn't do it, so we just didn't. And then kind of political science undergraduate. I was on the government relations board. I was at the Utah Youth Court Association. Like, everything I did was
all
basically political and, like, judicial kind of minded.
Yeah.
The one thing I did mess up on is I've known I had to take the LSAT since, like, I took the ACT. I was like, oh, I'll take the ACT. In a couple of years, I'll take the LSAT. Like, no big deal.
Sorry to interrupt you. In Utah, do you not take the SAT? Is it just the ACT?
We only take the ACT.
Interesting.
You can choose to take the SAT if you're planning on applying to, like, an Eastern or a Western college. But you have to, like, go do it yourself. It's not like the one that's done just the same day that all the juniors take their test.
Yeah.
That's only the ACT here.
Wait. You guys have a set day where all juniors take the ACT?
Yeah. And then the rest of the school has the whole day off.
No way.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No, yeah.
We California folk are being ripped off. That's ridiculous because, okay, yeah, my mistake in high school too. I didn't know that you had to take any sort of standardized test to get into college.
Oh.
And so one of my teachers was all, okay, Hayley, like it's time to apply to college. You might want to go take the SAT. And I was all, oh, sure, right. And I just like signed up to go take it one day and did not even crack open a study book at all. Just waltzed in there and I was all, yeah, I'll be fine. This will be great. I mean, again, fortunately I did okay on it because it got me into college, but I was like, what? Why did I do that? Looking back now, I'm all, why did I just waltz into that? Like, it didn't matter.
She's probably just going to waltz into the bar.
Yes! I've got issues with standardized tests, man, because, yeah, my teacher was like, yeah, you might want to consider doing that. And then I heard about the ACT, and I was all, oh, well, might as well take that one, too. So I took both of them, the SAT and the ACT, because some colleges required like one or the other, or some were like, oh, you can submit both. And like, I did better on the ACT than I did the SAT. So when I asked for both, I was like, no, I'll give you my ACT score. But yeah, that's shocking to me because you had to do it on a weekend or something. There was not a day in school where we set aside time for you to take that. No.
Yeah, we had a day. And then that whole day, because like the whole school had to be a good testing environment, the sophomores and the seniors got the day off. Like they just didn't come to school that day.
What the heck?
Yeah.
That's
it was nice.
Nuts. No, we had to go on like a Saturday.
Oh,
so everyone's like, oh yeah, I gotta show up to the test in our pajamas. And yeah, it was like a whole deal, but on a Saturday, not a day of school. It's ridiculous.
That is weird. Well, back to my story before Hayley rudely interrupted me. So I knew that I had to take the LSAT, but I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
And then when I started like looking at like applying for law school, they were like, oh, you have to take the LSAT. And I'm like, oh, I've got plenty of time. And by then it was like October. And I was applying and the deadline to apply was like the next March. And so there were only like 2 more times that you could take the LSAT. And so I took it in December. I did study. I studied my rear end off for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
Took a whole bunch of like practice exams and obviously I did good enough to get in. But for me it was kind of like a whole like path of progression since like junior high.
Yeah.
That I wanted to go to law school.
I feel like your life has been aimed at that end goal.
It kind of has.
The same, not for me.
Yeah, I blame that on having like immigrant parents. It really is. If anyone like has immigrant parents, you just know like you're either gonna be like a doctor or a lawyer or like a businessman, but like in something that's extraordinarily successful traditionally, or businesswoman, etc. Like it just comes with the territory.
Yeah,
in a way.
I think my mom's just like, do something that's successful, Hayley. Open-ended. It's like, whatever that
Literally
may be.
anything.
Yeah. She's like, obviously there are some things that would be better than others, but good luck.
Yeah. But I think along those lines, I think one of my biggest pieces of advice to people is just do something, anything extracurricular or anything like that when you're in your undergraduate. Remember that whatever you did in high school doesn't matter anymore when you get to grad school.
That's actually super true. Which sucks for someone like me.
Yeah, like if you did a lot of stuff in high school, it sucks, but they don't care because it was so long ago, and if you haven't done anything in your undergraduate, then they're kind of like, well, whatever you did when you were like 17 really isn't that cool. And especially when you're competing for graduate school, to give you an example, like there is one of our fellow students at the University of Utah, like graduated from Harvard, was a professor at Stanford before she applied to law school. And so you're going up against...
Awesome. She's got like a PhD in political science, and she's awesome.
She is. And so like if you're competing against that and the only thing you have to put on your resume is, I did this back in high school when I was a junior, it kind of screws you over. And I think they do take into account like, are you going to law school 20 years after you graduated, or are you coming in right from your undergraduate? And they understand that as a 20, 21, 22-year-old, you don't have all that experience. But at the same time, if you literally haven't done anything during your collegiate career, then it really, really will hurt you.
Yeah, and I think that my case is probably one that's more rare. Like, I would not suggest not doing anything law related before you go to law school, because now I'm trying to apply for jobs and I'm looking at my resume and I'm like, wait a second, there isn't anything on here that indicates any sort of law interest, because all I have is background in either like business oriented jobs or like biology. Also, I could put on there that, oh yeah, I worked in a lab during my undergrad, but they don't care. That's not relevant at all. So that's a little tough. I think that the reason that I probably got accepted into schools was because I'm so young, that they were all, okay, well, maybe she hasn't had time. And I think in my personal statement, I did a really good job of explaining why, which I'm not going to go into that. But like, I think that if you could tweak that and make that work in your favor, like I think that fortunately I did a good enough job of making it work in my favor that it got me in. But if you can't really sell yourself and like really make your story make sense in the context of law school, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a background more like you in order to make it work, because
it at least makes it a lot easier. And the other thing is, I've heard and I do believe that law schools don't really care what you did your undergraduate in. We have people everywhere from political science to biology to like linguistics, like all types of degrees in our class. But I think when you start to apply for jobs or internships, law school's super heavy on like summer internships. And when you start applying for those internships and clerkships, I think that an employer will look at your background.
Yeah.
If you have someone that has like something completely unrelated, and then you have someone whose whole degree was in political science and it's a job working for the city government, I think it will factor in.
Exactly.
So it'll at least make things easier for you if you just kind of take little steps, even if it's not your major, like extracurricular activities, things like that.
Yeah.
To really...
I think too, even the people that I know of in our class who have degrees that are outside of criminal justice, for example, there's a guy in our class who has a background, a super extensive background in things to do with like environmental science, but that's the area of law he wants to go into. So it makes sense. Where me, I got my degree in biology, but that I don't want to go into environmental law. I don't want to do anything with my degree at all. And so that's why, again,
it's like a paradigm shift.
It doesn't really make sense at all. I was on this path and then I literally picked myself up and moved myself somewhere else. Or at least he has followed the same path and is still, I got my undergrad in environmental science or whatever, but I'm still on the path to being involved in that, and his undergrad still makes sense. So
Yeah.
I would not recommend the whole path change thing entirely, or at least like take some time, because I just feel like I got lucky getting into school almost, just because I guess I walked into it knowing, yeah, I won't be surprised if I get told no, because it doesn't make sense. And as far as jobs go, yeah, I know it's going to be hard to get a job right now because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, and I get that, but yeah. Try and live your life like this. Try and do that.
I think the biggest thing is just like, whenever you're making these decisions after high school, during your undergrad, take some time to really think out the next few years. To me, I think it would even be worth it to take a year or two off after high school before going to college, just to make sure, take some time, try to figure out exactly what you want to do, so that you don't have a situation where, oh, I did my whole degree and now I'm going to flip a 180 and do something different. Because it's doable. I mean, Hayley's right here, but it's definitely, I think, makes things harder for you.
I agree. And even if you take time off in between your undergrad and a graduate school to kind of focus on something. Like, I almost think that, maybe I should have taken more time and really tried to get jobs or internships that were more law related, because at least then when you're applying for jobs, you're 1L here, you have a little bit of background. Even if it doesn't make sense with your degree, you have some sort of background to be like, yeah, well, I dabbled a little bit before I went to law school. For me, I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah. Which kind of segues into our next question. And this one I think is fun because I'm kind of a little brutal when people ask me this question.
See, I appreciate that, though. I'm like, keep it real.
So the next question that we got a lot, or that I got a lot, at least personally after I got into law school, was people that I knew that were younger, that were still in high school, still in their undergraduate, and they asked me if law school is right for them, if they should go to law school, if they should, what they should start doing, and if it was a good choice, and if I regretted it, and that kind of thing. And so I want to ask you, what do you think? What would you say to someone who's asking you, should I go to law school, Hayley?
That's tough.
I'm about to start my college degree. It happens a lot.
I went back home.
Side note, once you get into law school or tell people you're going to law school, everyone is going to ask you every question they've ever had about lawyers.
Your DMs flooded.
Every time someone gets a speeding ticket, I've had family members that are like, hey, should I contest this? I'm like, I can't tell you because I can't give you legal advice.
No joke, this is one of the stories that I was going to talk about in the next one, but it's so relevant right now. We're going to throw it out there right now. No joke, there was a girl, I was saving it for this podcast, that's why I didn't tell you about it, because I was like,
great.
genuine reactions.
Genuine reaction.
There was a girl who messaged me, and we briefly knew each other maybe our freshman year of high school, and I haven't talked to her since then. So we went to high school with each other all 4 years, but we were on the swim team together our freshman year, talked to each other, and didn't really talk to her after that. She messaged me on Instagram maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago and explained this whole elaborate story having to do with a guy that she's renting an apartment from, and money that they're in dispute over, and blah blah blah, and was all, so do you think I'd win? Do you think that was all? What? I was like, well, fortunately, we took contracts and a little bit of property, so I guess I kind of understand the renter's process, and it was a pretty basic question. But then I had to preface it, so I was all, because I'm not a lawyer yet, all of this is mere speculation based on what I've heard in class. This isn't actual legal advice. You can't actually use any of this and say that it was real.
Can't come back and sue me if you lose.
I was this is just me as a law student having been through a contracts class telling you what I think might happen. But I was like, what the heck? What? I barely finished my first semester and you're asking me for advice? I was all, I guess. I was all, sure, maybe Peterson will be proud, but
I had the same thing, and then I had people that I had one of my husband's friends ask me, this guy got a speeding ticket. He was going 30 over. And he's like, it was, yeah. It was in a 30, and he was going 55, 60.
Especially because don't they give you, I've never gotten a speeding ticket, but they charge you for the amount of mileage, or miles per hour over that you're going, right?
I think it's so it depends. I think it's 1 through 9, it's $10 per mile per hour. But then once you go over, it just goes to a standard kind of fine. But, This guy got a ticket, and he texted my husband and asked him hey, does Christian know what I can do about this? And then I told him, I'm like, dude, you were going 30 over. The cop clocked you. Don't fight it. You're gonna go in front of a judge. You're a 22-year-old kid who was caught in like this Subaru, like basically racing through the streets. Like, you're just gonna piss off this judge.
Where was this? Was it?
This was here in like Sandy, which
Really?
is like 20 minutes south.
That
of
makes
here.
me curious that you would say don't fight it, because every single time that I've heard about people getting speeding tickets, the cops never show up until everyone's like, always fight those. Like, always fight those, because the cop never shows up. And I mean, obviously, if the cop shows up, you're going to look real stupid.
The thing is, for a 30 over ticket, though, I mean, if you're going maybe like 5 or 10 over and it's something like that, I could see it, because if cops respond to every single ticket they get. Yeah. But this guy basically was like a pen stroke away from getting a street racing ticket. Like, 30 miles per hour in a 30 mile an hour like place. Like, you're going on the freeway on a residential street. Like, no, this guy was not getting out of it. And I'm like, you go in, and I know this guy too, so like his demeanor, I know he would have just gone in and like pretending he knew everything. This judge would have just like kicked him,
ripped him,
you know. So, but people get upset when you tell them that they have like an illegal issue and they're not likely to win. And so I've just stopped talking to people. I'll just tell people, you know what? Unfortunately, I can't give you any legal advice. I'm only a student. I'm like, I can refer you to a couple attorneys I know, but that's about it. Because people they'll ask you for your advice, and then they'll get pissed if you don't tell them they're going to win. And it's like...
Well, I want to say, look, I mean, number one, I don't know necessarily exactly. Like, obviously, I'm not 100% correct all the time, but also, if I'm only in my first year of law school and I think that your odds aren't very good...
chances are you're...
It's not looking too bright.
Yeah, but yeah, that is interesting. So back to it.
That did happen to me though. When I went back home for Christmas break, there was a girl that I met at the last job that I had, and she was all, I'm finishing up my degree in criminal justice in May. She was like, and like, I've seen you talk about law school and it sounds awesome and I want to do it. And I was all, oh my gosh. And that's the thing too, is I don't want to say, because I don't know her well enough that I wouldn't be able to judge. But I also feel like I don't know how you work. I don't know how dedicated you are. Mm-hmm. I don't know, because I guess what I want to tell people, when you're thinking about law school, it is hard. Do not for a single second think that you will not have to work hard every single day. Like, you cannot be lazy the way that you are in undergrad. No. I was so lazy during my undergrad. I was like, yeah, whatever. I like, honestly, this is so bad of me to say, but I probably missed more classes than I went to during my undergrad, because I was all, yeah, whatever. I can learn it off the slideshow and I'll be fine. And that's how I made it through my undergrad, was just like, I'll just go look at the slides and I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And like, thankfully that worked for me. That would not work now.
Not
at all. Not at all. Even going back and watching the recordings of class, I'm all, this still isn't the same. Why it's not the same, I don't even know. Like, what being there in the classroom does for you, I don't know. But it's like, you have to be willing to work hard. And so that's my thing when I hear people like, oh, would law school be good for me? I'm all, how hard are you willing to work? Like, show me things in your life that have required a ton of work and dedication and effort, and then I might be able to tell you if it's going to work for you. Mm-hmm. But if you are not willing to just commit, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think I've had a couple people ask me, one or two people ask me, and I tell them the exact same thing. I'm like, look, it's hard. And the way I always phrase it is like, if you are 100% sure that you want to be an attorney, like this is what you want to do, you're passionate, there's something in the legal field that just like really attracts you, do it. But if not, don't. Do literally anything else. For your sanity, for your financial well-being, for your family, for your friends, your social life. Literally, like, the list goes on. And I think there's a couple things. One, it's expensive. The University of Utah, I went there as an undergraduate and now in law school. And as an undergraduate, it's about $8,000 for the full year, right? Mm-hmm. So 15 credits, 2 semesters, about $8,000. And that's in-state. It basically just doubles if you're out of state. And then in-state for law school is about $28,000, so almost 4 times as much. I don't know. Do you know how much it is out-of-state resident?
Out-of-state, I want to say it's about 10 grand more than that.
Yeah, so like 38, almost 40 grand. And that's not factoring in the fact that, if you don't have family here, you have to pay for somewhere to live, transportation, food, etc. They don't let you work your first year of law school. So it's basically all on loans. And then a full ride scholarship in grad school is almost non-existent. Because it's just so expensive and they want to give a lot of people scholarships.
And even FAFSAs, when I was in my undergrad, the FAFSA helped out because you get grants and things like that. If you or your parents don't make a ton of money, that's not a thing in grad school.
Yeah, you don't get free money. You get federal loans.
But loans, it's not just handouts, essentially. And it's like sucks.
A lower kind of subsidized interest rate, but it's still, I mean, you're taking out loans. There's no grants. Scholarships, there are some, but they're limited. And again, you have to consider some people in your class are ex-professors and things like that. So you're competing with those people for scholarship money.
And I'm going to throw this in here because we talked about what to do while you're in your undergrad. My advice, first of all, is I think from a employer perspective, that was bad grammar, an employer perspective, moving forward, you want to, your colleges should get better as you progress through degrees. I don't think that they should necessarily get worse.
Yeah.
And so if you know when you're even coming out of high school that you want to go to some form of graduate school, keep that in mind when you're choosing where you go for your undergrad, especially because if you're going to have to take out loans for graduate school, you want to make your undergrad a little bit cheaper if you can. Mm-hmm. So like I got my degree at Cal State Bakersfield and I was able to pay tuition and everything out of pocket. So I didn't have to take out any loans because it was so cheap. And then I was like, okay, now we'll be able to go to a better school and I won't have a ton of debt already. Mm-hmm. And that's been nice, like super, super helpful. So I would say to anyone coming out of high school or getting ready to go get their undergrad somewhere, keep that in mind. Like that you're going to have to take out loans for grad school. So be careful about that. Yeah. Like think about that when you're choosing where you go for your undergrad.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is that really what matters is your grade and your extracurriculars. I think a lot of people put too much emphasis into what school you go to. Because of the name or whatever, they think that Stanford is going to help you get into places. And if you can get into one of those Ivy League schools, sure. But if you're not getting into a Stanford or a Harvard or a Pepperdine or a Dartmouth, etc., it doesn't matter. And the thing is, when you apply for college, colleges don't really care where you went to college as much as like what your grades were. And then once you apply, once you take the bar, sit for the bar, and then become an attorney, no one cares where your undergraduate is. They care about where your law school degree is from.
If I got my degree at Cal State Bakersfield and I got into law school, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay.
And I mean, save the money, take the time to just not take out loans, go wherever you can go, that kind of thing. I was fortunate enough that I got a full ride to the University of Utah, which is like Utah's flagship university kind of. But if not, I would have gone to a community college for the same reasons that to me, getting a bachelor's degree debt-free was worth more than having a red U on the degree itself.
I 100% agree. Like 100%.
Especially if, like, I knew I wasn't going to use my bachelor's degree. Like, I knew that I was going to go to grad school from the get-go, so it didn't really matter that much to me.
Exactly.
So,
and I even look at my life and I'm not even in the same graduate school that I expected myself to be in, but I'm still in grad school and I knew that was going to happen, so save yourself some money in the long run. Like people are always like, ew, Hayley, Cal State Bakersfield. And I want to be like, I don't care. Yeah. I don't care because ultimately I had zero debt going into law school. Like that was the ultimate goal. So any way you can accomplish that, do it. Yeah. Even people that are like, oh, I don't want to go to a community college first. If that will save you money and you can afford to pay for classes, $100 a class and get your first 2 years out of the way debt-free, do it.
And that's the other thing too. If you go, Utah has this kind of agreement. The University of Utah has an agreement with Salt Lake Community College that you can do your generals at Salt Lake Community College and then transfer them all to the U and then do your major. Even look into things like that because
that's awesome.
Your generals don't matter. Math is math. English is English. No matter what university in the world you go to. Well, in the country you go to. But like it's all the same. So if you can do even something like that, do it because no one cares. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, if then you get to transfer it to another university and graduate and have their name on your degree, then even better.
Kudos, yeah.
But yeah, I would say, law school's expensive. It's very expensive. It's going to be expensive in the long run. And yes, as an attorney, you will be making a lot of money. But You know, I know a lot of people that started their undergrads and then switched halfway or decided, oh, I don't want to do this. And in law school, you know, where it's $28,000 a year, you could be 50, 60K in, and then, you know, you decide you don't want to be a lawyer, then good luck figuring out a way to kind of pay that back.
Yeah.
So I would say that financially it's expensive. But then the other thing is the emotional and mental toll. Guys, law school is hard. It's hard for everyone, no matter where they came from. There are people in our class that were in the military, you know, British military forces, like people that you would think are so mentally tough that school would be easy for them, and even they think it's exhausting and it's hard and it's just, it breaks you down as a person. And it really does, because your entire time is consumed thinking like a lawyer. And the other thing that I kind of talked about with some people earlier this week is that it takes a toll on your mental health, because you are taught to pinpoint and pick apart the worst parts of the situation. You know, anything that can make your client win.
Yeah.
And the problem is you start doing that in your life. Like, you have an argument with your significant other or with a friend or with your family members, and your mind goes into like a million hypotheticals of like how now you're going to end up getting divorced.
Yeah.
Because like you got in a fight over like, I don't know, who didn't take the dogs out last night. Like, it's things like that. Like, law school takes such a toll on your mental health.
Yeah.
And so, to me, if you're not absolutely sure you want to do it, don't. Do something else. Take some time off. Work a different job. I don't know. Just for me, if I wasn't 100% sure I'd do it, I wouldn't have done it.
Agreed. I think that it goes back to the dedication thing. You have to really, really want it, because if you don't, it's rough. And I think, oh my gosh.
You sacrifice everything.
You do. I'm like, thank goodness that I wasn't in a relationship when I started law school, because that wouldn't have worked.
No.
Like, unless you're married and you've got some time with this person under your belt.
Yeah.
Kudos to anyone that can be in a dating relationship while in law school.
Well, they literally even told us, like, at orientation, they're like, if you're in a relationship and it's on rocky road, just end it. Because I guarantee you it'll end by the time
like
first semester's over.
I was broken up with this guy when I started law school, and thank goodness. But I had spent like 2.5 years with him, so I was all, dang, I'm going to law school. This is a serious commitment. Like, I want someone to do it with. And so I was all, I'm going to make it work with this guy. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to put in the work. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you. Number one, this fool was a flake. Like, you got to find someone who wants it as bad as you do too. But like, I'm not trying to roast him, but but it's like you gotta find someone who wants it as bad as you, and then has to be understanding too. Like, you know what? We're gonna turn this into a hypothetical, because I'm not gonna sit here and like roast someone. You have to essentially look at it like a marriage if you're gonna make a relationship work, because I think about it and I'm all, dude, even if I was in like a super simple dating relationship, like even if you took my relationship with this guy at the very beginning when things were great, it would not have survived. It wouldn't have, because you've got so much time dedicated to school, and we've got memos to write and things to go to, like extracurriculars to build our resumes.
30 emails a day inviting us to things.
Thank you. And so I'm all, no, like it's really got to be, you've got to have an understanding spouse who understands what you're about to get yourself into. And you have to understand what you're about to get yourself into. I think that when I hear people talk about things like comparing med school and law school, they're all, oh, med school is so hard, but law school and whatever. I want to be like, granted, I've never been in med school, but I can tell you law school is not easy. It's not something that I would just kind of brush off and be like, oh, it's kind of challenging, but you can do it.
No.
Don't look at it that way, because it will rock your world if you show up here thinking it's going to be easy.
And it just like overwhelms you. Like, it takes over basically every free moment you have. It takes over, like, you don't have a social life. You really don't. Basically, the only social life you have is hanging out with people that are also in law school.
Yeah.
Because you know when they have free time. But it's really, it just takes over your life.
Yeah.
And really, like, unless you're willing to sacrifice basically everything, at least for 3 years, don't do it.
Yeah. Well, and everyone used to joke too, oh, Hayley, you're going to move to Utah and be married within 4 months. And I was all, oh gosh.
They
and so
clearly didn't know you.
It got me thinking when I was getting ready to leave, and I was all, wow, like, what if I do move there again? No. And I have fully accepted that I probably will not even date another human being until law school is over, because no, to do it the right way. Like, sure, I could attempt to date someone, but to do it the right way, like to do life the right way, you can't do it in law school.
Well, and I feel like most people wouldn't, unless they've gone through grad school or they've gone through something similar or are going through it currently. I feel like most people wouldn't be okay with it. Yeah. Like, realistically, if I were dating someone, we would maybe get to go out officially on a date like once or twice a month, maybe. And like, it's
depending on the time of the school year, yeah.
Yeah, like when you're starting a new relationship, you're kind of like hanging out a lot, you're going out all the time, you're watching movies together. Like, it takes time to like build a relationship, and you just don't have that time. Mm-mm. And I don't know very many people that are going to be like, oh, I'm super into this person, and I'm okay with seeing them once or twice a month. It doesn't happen.
Well, and that's why I forget who it was, that we went to like some sort of one of our little sync sessions where we were talking, and someone was like, don't get married in law school. And now I think back about that talk a lot, and I'm all, who could even get married? Who would find someone while in law school and convince that person to like them and then marry them while...
And then plan a wedding. Who has time to plan a wedding during law school?
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. Like, that would... No, I can't even imagine what that would be like.
No, yeah, it'd be absolutely just... It really is. Like, guys, it just consumes everything.
It does.
Your life is just law school.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Your life is law school and resumes and... I don't know, writing memos, applying for jobs, and the worst thing is that it's not like in your undergrad where there's kind of like this slow pace, like, oh, I can apply for internships because they start accepting applications in like May and they start in June and it's barely October. Yeah. No, they start like accepting applications in November, where you've been in law school for 2 months for a job that you're not even going to start for another like 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're still getting used to law school. You're doing your memos. You're trying to like not drown or jump off the 6th floor. Like, really, like, you are just trying to keep your head above water, and you just get barraged by everything you have to do all the time.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming. And like, if you're not seriously committed, like, I would be sitting there and being like, I don't really want to do this. This isn't worth it to me.
And I want to tell people, I know like what we're saying makes it sound super negative, but I love it. I do love it, but because I'm so crazy about it and because it's so fun to me, and you have to have that passion about it. Like, you have to really, really want it, because if you don't love it and it doesn't feel worth it to you, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to do it. And so you've got to, like, it's great if you really want it, but if you don't want it, you're not going to like it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, law school sucks and it has its downs, but it's just like, being a doctor and going to school for 13 years. Yeah, it sucks, but if that's what you're really passionate about, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what pushes me to put up with all of this, and to keep pushing through. But again, you have to have that passion for it.
Agreed.
You have to sit down and tell yourself, am I willing to give every single bit of myself for this? And if I am, then great. You're going to have a good time. You're going to be stressed. It's going to take up your time. But you're going to learn so much, you're going to make so many new friends interested in what you're doing, and it's going to be a good experience. It's just going to be a lot of work. Yeah. But if that's worth it for you, then do it, because it's great. It is a great experience. I wouldn't change it even now going through it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's just
we love
hard.
law school, but it's hard.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
All right.
That was a good episode.
That was a good episode. Hopefully,
2 questions turned into...
Didn't depress people too much.
Yeah,
but
yeah, really. So put in the right work in your undergrad and just really make sure that it's what you really want.
Yeah.
You'll be good to go.
You'll be good to go. We'll see you in law school.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. And yeah, I guess we'll see you in the next one. Give us 5 stars and like the video.
Share it with your friends, family, coworkers, pets.
That's a good one too, yeah. Pets.
Yeah, share
Just put it on for your pet when you leave.
When you leave, play it for your dogs.
Yeah,
They'll love
there
it.
you go. Exactly. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
We'll see ya.